I never thought my marriage would fall apart like this. But when the signs started showing up, I couldn't ignore them. My name is Nick, and for a long time, I believed my wife Audrey and I had a solid marriage. Not perfect, but strong. We had our ups and downs, but we always worked through them. Or so I thought. Looking back now, I realized that while I was holding on, Audrey had already let go. It started with little things: distance, disinterest, and a phone she suddenly never let go of. When I asked where she'd been, she'd barely look up from her screen, offering vague answers like, "Just out." The warm, open woman I married became cold and dismissive. One night, I finally confronted her. "Audrey, what's wrong? Why are you acting this way?" If I had something to say, I'd say it. "Let me sleep," she replied without hesitation. That hurt more than I can explain. The truth came days later from a friend's call. I hate to be that guy, but I saw Audrey with a man. They didn't look like just friends. I wanted to deny it, but I couldn't. The secrecy, the late nights, the locked phone, it all added up. I needed proof. One night, she left her phone on the couch while stepping into the bathroom. My heart pounded as I reached for it, only to find the password had been changed. We'd never hidden our passwords before. This was no coincidence. Desperate for answers, I decided to follow her when she left one evening without explanation. She pulled up to an unfamiliar house, knocked on the door with familiar ease, and walked inside. A man welcomed her with a smile. I sat there stunned as my marriage shattered in front of me. Later that night, she came home acting like nothing happened, but I was done pretending. I called her into the living room and told her to sit down. It was time for the truth. She acted like she had better things to do. I took a deep breath, locked eyes with her, and said, "I want you to end whatever's going on, or we're done." My voice was calm, steady. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I just stated the truth. She frowned, shaking her head. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, her voice flat. "There's nothing going on." I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and turned the screen toward her. There they were, clear pictures of her walking into his house, laughing with him. For a split second, I saw it on her face. She looked caught, but just as quickly, the guilt vanished, replaced by something else: anger. "You even followed me? That's crazy," she snapped, her voice rising. "You don't trust me, so now you're stalking me. That's sick, Nick." Something inside me went cold. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't ashamed. She wasn't even surprised. Instead of taking responsibility, she flipped it back on me, trying to make me the villain for finding out. I exhaled slowly, nodding to myself. "Okay," I said, standing up. "Got it." There was no point arguing. She had already made her choice. The next week was a blur of silence. We still lived under the same roof, but we were strangers. No small talk, no fake smiles, just two people, waiting for the inevitable. She didn't try to explain. She didn't try to fix anything. And I already knew she wasn't going to stop seeing him. I wasn't going to beg for loyalty. That's not love, that's desperation. And I wasn't desperate. So while she carried on pretending nothing had changed, I made a quiet trip to my lawyer's office and started the process. If she wanted to be with him so badly, she could have him, but she wasn't going to take me down with her. One morning, as I buttoned my shirt, Audrey's voice broke the silence. "I'm making you dinner tonight." I froze for just a second, my fingers pausing over the last button. She hadn't cooked for me in months, not since all this started. Lately, she barely acknowledged my presence unless it was to be cold or dismissive. And now, out of nowhere, she wanted to make dinner? I turned to look at her. She stood near the dresser, scrolling through her phone, not even looking at me. That's what made it suspicious. "All right," I finally said, keeping my tone neutral. If this was a game, I wasn't going to show my hand first. As I left for work, my mind wouldn't let it go. Was this guilt? A peace offering? Or was she setting the stage for something else? A confession? An excuse? A final act of control before pulling the rug out from under me? What Audrey didn't know was that I had already taken steps to free myself. The divorce papers were prepared, waiting for the right moment. And more than that, I had something she wouldn't see coming. While she was sneaking around with her lover, I had been getting closer to someone too, her best friend. It started as casual conversations, shared frustration about Audrey's behavior. Over time, it became something more. She saw the woman Audrey had become, and she had no illusions about who she really was. So if tonight's dinner was some kind of mind game, I was ready. I wouldn't argue, beg, or get angry. I would simply end this marriage on my terms. That evening, the smell of home-cooked food filled the air, a smell I hadn't experienced in a long time. If this were months ago, I might have been hopeful, but I knew better now. We ate mostly in silence, no small talk, no smiles, just the clink of silverware and the tension sitting between us like an unwelcome guest. Halfway through the meal, I put my fork down and looked at her. "So," I said, my voice calm, "have you ended your affair?" She didn't flinch. She just smirked, like she'd been waiting for this. "I'm leaving you," she said. I exhaled slowly, more amused than anything else. There was a time when those words would have broken me, when I would have begged her to stay, but now it felt like an overdue ending to a story that should have closed long ago. I smiled, a real, genuine smile. Then I got up, walked to the bedroom, and returned with a stack of neatly arranged papers. I placed them on the table and slid them across. "Perfect," I said, my voice steady. "I already prepared the paperwork, sign them." For the first time that evening, her confidence wavered. She hadn't expected this. She stared at the papers, then at me, searching for some kind of reaction to use against me. But there was nothing, just calm, and then, ding-dong. Her head snapped toward the door. She wasn't expecting anyone, but I was. I pushed my chair back, taking my time walking to the door, and when I opened it, there she was. Standing in the doorway, looking effortlessly beautiful, was Audrey's best friend, the woman Audrey had trusted with all her secrets, the woman I had been getting closer to ever since I realized my marriage was already dead. I stepped aside and gestured toward her. "Meet my new girlfriend." The look on Audrey's face was priceless, a mix of shock, betrayal, disbelief, and maybe even regret. She had forgotten one simple rule: when you play games, you better be prepared to lose. But the story didn't end there. Audrey didn't take it well. When she realized I had beaten her at her own game, she snapped. She went from stunned silence to unhinged rage in seconds. She went to court, played the victim, and spun a web of lies. She painted me as controlling, manipulative, even abusive. Claimed she'd felt isolated, worthless, and emotionally tormented. And the worst part? Some people believed her. That's the thing about lies. Say them with enough confidence, and they start to sound like the truth. But I wasn't about to let her win. When my turn came, I let the evidence speak louder than any words ever could. I had photos of her sneaking into her lover's house, text messages that made it painfully obvious this was far from an innocent friendship. And then there was the financial betrayal, bank statements proving she had been using money from our joint account to fund her affair. My lawyer left no stone unturned. Every withdrawal, every expense, each one traced back to her deceit. But the real blow landed when we addressed the emotional damage. For months, I had felt like I was losing my mind, second-guessing myself, wondering if I was the problem. The lies, the gaslighting, the relentless betrayal had taken a devastating toll on my well-being, and the court listened. When the final ruling came, I saw the defeat in Audrey's eyes. The judge split the assets fairly, but thanks to my undeniable proof, I kept most of what I had worked so hard for. She didn't get to walk away with everything like she had planned. She thought she could destroy me, but in the end she only exposed herself. And as I walked out of that courtroom, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. But peace doesn't mean you walk away unscarred. You don't go through a betrayal like that and come out the same. I told myself I had moved on, maybe even believed it. Audrey's best friend and I started seeing each other. She had been there through the fallout, seen how I had been treated, and unlike my ex-wife, she appreciated me. But deep down, I couldn't shake the fear that no matter who I was with, I'd always be waiting for the other shoe to drop. Trust, once shattered, never quite fits back together the same way. Could I ever trust someone enough to get married again? Right now, I don't think so. Not because I don't want to, but because I don't know if I'll ever look at love the same way. When you touch a hot stove and get burned, you flinch every time you feel the heat. And me? I got burned badly. In the end, I realized something crucial. Sometimes the people we trust the most are the ones who betray us the hardest. And when they do, the best revenge isn't anger. It's not trying to get even. It's not wasting your energy on hate. No, the best revenge is moving on, living well, becoming someone they can never have again, and making sure they regret losing you every single day. And believe me, Audrey regretted it. That's enough for me. So that's my story. A wild one, I know, but that's life, right? You think you know someone, you build a life with them, and one day they throw it all away like it never mattered. But here's the thing. I didn't let it destroy me. And if you ever find yourself in a situation like this, don't let it destroy you either. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think I handled this the right way? Should I have done something differently? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And remember, if something feels off in your relationship, it probably is. Don't ignore the signs. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.